This attitude of hands off, of not interfering with oneself beyond the second point, is called, again in Lao Tzu's Taoist philosophy, this. Wu Wei. This character means we have to allow all living things to let go and manage themselves.
What if everything we've been taught about success and control is backwards? In a world obsessed with doing more, getting more, and pushing harder, Lao Tzu offers us a radical alternative, the art of letting go. Imagine finding peace, success, and even happiness, not through struggle, but through surrender. That's the heart of Taoism, the ancient Chinese philosophy that challenges us to let go and flow with life instead of fighting against it. Lao Tzu, in his profound verses of the Tao Te Ching, commonly found in the translation by Jia Fu Feng and Jane English, teaches us that, in the pursuit of learning, every day something is acquired. In the pursuit of the Tao, every day something is dropped. Less and less is done until non-action is achieved. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. In today's video, we'll explore 5 powerful Taoist principles brought to life by Lao Tzu's wisdom and the insights of Alan Watts. These teachings aren't about giving up. They're about finding strength in not forcing, resilience in adaptability, and freedom from our attachment to outcomes. By the end, you might just see that letting go is the ultimate path to mastering life. Our culture tells us that if we want something, we have to work harder and do more. But Lao Tzu offers a radically different idea. Sometimes the most powerful action is no action at all. He calls it Wu Wei, which means non-doing or effortless action. In the foundational work of Taoism, the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu imparts the lesson. The Tao does nothing, but leaves nothing undone. Think about this in today's context. We're always told that if we're not busy, we're not productive. But what if doing less actually got us better results? Lao Tzu speaks of Wu Wei, the principle of non-doing, or effortless action, where, by doing nothing, everything is done. Alan Watts, a 20th century philosopher known for bringing Eastern wisdom to the West, expands on this idea, explaining that Wu Wei can also be understood as not forcing, a principle seen in all natural processes.
There is a principle called Wu Wei, and this means, Wu means non or not, no, negation. Wei has a combination of meanings. It can mean action, making, but the best translation I have found for it is forcing. And so Wu Wei is the principle of not forcing in anything that you do. Now we know when we watch any performance of an artist, be it a dancer or an actor or a musician, we know immediately when the performance is forced. And we say it doesn't ring true, it's too artificial, it doesn't seem to be natural. Many people who study the Taoist doctrines think that Wu Wei means do nothing, in the sense of laissez-faire, be lazy, always be passive. It doesn't mean that. There is a time for action. When you study judo, you use muscle only at the right moment. When your opponent is hopelessly overextended and off balance, and you add a little muscle to it and you throw him across the room. But only then. You never use muscle at the wrong moment. For as Shakespeare knew perfectly well, there is a tide in the affairs of men which, taken at its flood, leads on to fortune.
Look at the rise of burnout culture. People are working longer hours, hustling on the side, yet feeling more stressed and less fulfilled. We push ourselves to the point of exhaustion, but in the end, we're not any closer to the success or happiness we crave. Lao Tzu would tell us to step back. Like a tree, you can plant it, water it, give it sunlight, but you can't force it to grow. The tree knows what to do on its own. In life, the more we try to control every little detail, the more resistance we create. But when we let go, when we allow space, life often falls into place naturally. In relationships, careers, or even personal growth, less forcing and more flow can often lead to the best outcomes. We live in a world of constant change. Technology, politics, the economy. Every day feels like a new challenge to adapt to. Yet as humans, we cling to stability and resist change. Why? Because it feels safer. D.C. Lao's translation of the Tao Te Ching captures Lao Tzu's message on the strength found in adaptability. A man is supple and weak when living, but hard and stiff when dead. Grass and trees are pliant and fragile when living, but dried and shriveled when dead. Thus, the hard and strong are companions of death. The supple and weak are companions of life. Lao Tzu's teachings remind us that adaptability is strength. In a similar vein, Alan Watts describes Wu Wei as the art of sailing rather than rowing, suggesting that we thrive when we move with life's natural changes, like sailing with the wind instead of fighting against it.
And so Wu Wei is based on knowledge of the tide, the drift of things. Get with it. Wu Wei is the art of sailing rather than the art of rowing. So, if you say now, one of the most famous sayings in the Lao Tzu book is, superior virtue has no intention to be virtuous, and thus is virtue. Inferior virtue cannot let go of virtuosity, and thus is not virtue. So one could also say, the real Wu Wei is not intentionally Wu Wei, and so is Wu Wei.
Look at industries that have failed to adapt to change, like Blockbuster, which refused to change with the rise of streaming. They clung to an outdated model, and eventually they became irrelevant. Meanwhile, Netflix, which adapted to the streaming age, has thrived by flowing with the changes in technology. It's the same with life. Those who are flexible and open to change can thrive, but those who resist change become stuck, rigid, and ultimately irrelevant. In a fast-changing world, strength comes from adaptability, not resistance. Life's natural flow is ever-changing, and the more we embrace that, the more we can grow with it rather than be worn down by it. We live in a results-driven world. From getting that promotion to hitting personal goals, it's all about the end result. But focusing too much on outcomes is a trap. Lao Tzu's philosophy encourages us to focus on the process, not the prize. Zhuangzi, another Taoist philosopher, shares a story about an archer. In Burton Watson's respected translation of Zhuangzi's Inner Chapters, we find the line, "When an archer shoots for enjoyment, he has all his skill. When he shoots for a brass buckle, he gets nervous. When he shoots for a prize of gold, he begins to see two targets." When we fixate on the reward, we lose the clarity and enjoyment of being fully present in our actions. In modern life, this might look like working tirelessly for a promotion, only to lose touch with the passion and purpose that made the work fulfilling in the first place. Lao Tzu encourages us to focus on the journey, not the prize, reminding us that in aiming too hard for the outcome, we often miss the beauty of the process. Alan Watts adds to this, explaining that clarity and purpose only reveal themselves when we quiet our minds and stop forcing decisions.
But inferior Wu Wei so tries to be Wu Wei that it isn't. In other words, this is saying Wu Wei is not a matter of cultivated passivity or even of cultivated spontaneity, because there are people who think that they are released, that they have realized that they are the Tao, as all of us in fact are, the eternal self of the universe, beyond all description or classification or thought. And say, okay, baby, I'm that. Now I'm going to have a ball. Well, what kind of a ball do they have? Well, what they do is they look up the rules on which society runs and do the opposite. Well, that's still running by the rules of society. And it's the mirror image in reverse. That's not spontaneity. You have to be able to realize that you don't know what you really want to do until you are very quiet. And it tells you. See, we are in heaven now because the earth is a spaceship, and heaven is space, what is called in Chinese gung, Japanese gu, the void. That's what is important, that most of us don't know this, but do you know you're much more space than you are anything else? So space is somehow very, very fundamental. You understand that heaven is space. Space. It comes down to space always. Space, which nobody can define, nobody can imagine, appears to be nothing, is the foundation of the universe.
Think about athletes who choke under pressure. Their skill hasn't changed, but their fixation on winning paralyzes them. When they let go of the outcome and focus on the act itself, they enter the flow state, the zone where they perform their best without even thinking about it. By letting go of outcomes, we free ourselves from the anxiety of the future and allow ourselves to be present in the process. where the real magic happens. Our society thrives on the belief that abundance is synonymous with success, more money, more status, more stuff. But Lao Tzu knew that accumulating more only weighs us down. Jia Fu Feng and Jane English capture the spirit of the Tao Te Ching in their evocative translation. He who knows that enough is enough will always have enough. In today's consumer-driven society, we constantly chase after more, whether it's the latest phone, the biggest house, or the ideal image online, defining success by accumulation rather than contentment. As Lao Tzu teaches us to let go of the excess that weighs us down, Alan Watts invites us to return to a state of wonder, like in childhood, where curiosity and simplicity led to fulfillment, not accumulation.
But you have to become again as a child to see that. Now you go back to your childhood. What were the fascinating things? What's out there? What's beyond the stars? How long does it go on? The child wonders. He's excited that this is something that never ends. Then the child asks about time. How long ago is long ago? And the child thinks, going back and back and back forever, never beginning. So in the same way you think about death, go to sleep and never wake up. Never. Whew. Why, it would be as if you never had existed. Not only you, but everything else. Which is, of course, the way things were before you were born.
Take the rise of the minimalism movement. People are beginning to see that accumulating more rarely brings happiness. Instead, it often results in stress, clutter, and a loss of freedom. Minimalism invites us to embrace the idea that owning less can create space to live more fully. Lao Tzu reminds us that less is more. Letting go of the excess, whether it's material possessions or even mental baggage, can free us to focus on what truly matters. What's something you can let go of today? What's weighing you down that no longer serves you? In a world that constantly tells us to define ourselves by our achievements and appearance, Lao Tzu offers a different path, one of letting go of the ego. Alan Watts deepens this idea, revealing that our sense of ego is just an illusion.
It's absolutely necessary that we let go of ourselves, and it can't be done. Not by anything that we call doing it, acting, willing, or even just accepting things. You can't do it. Why? Because you don't really exist as that kind of a separate ego or personality. It's just an idea based on a phony feeling.
In esteemed translations of Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching, such as those by James Legger, Jia Fu Feng and Jane English, we find the line, "He who stands on tiptoe is not steady. He who makes a show is not enlightened." Social media is a perfect reflection of the modern ego trap. We're constantly curating and managing our online identities, crafting a version of ourselves that's successful or popular. But the more we seek validation through likes and followers, the more fragile our sense of self becomes. Lao Tzu teaches that the ego is an illusion, something we cling to for security, but it only makes us more insecure. By letting go of the ego, we stop needing external validation and start living more authentically. When we let go of our attachment to how others perceive us, we gain true freedom. We can finally live not for approval, but for ourselves. So what does it all come down to? Life isn't about controlling everything. It's about letting go of the need to force outcomes, letting go of the fear of change, letting go of the things that weigh us down, and letting go of our attachment to ego. Lao Tzu's wisdom teaches us that control isn't the key to mastering life. Flow is. When we trust the natural course of life, we free ourselves from the stress of trying to control everything. D.C. Lao's rendition of the Tao Te Ching imparts the lesson. Bowed down, then preserved, bent then straight, hollow then full, worn then new, a little then benefited, a lot then perplexed. What will you let go of today? What's one thing that's weighing you down, that you can release to feel lighter, more free, and more aligned with the flow of life? Alan Watts challenges us to surrender our fixed beliefs, to truly see the world as it is, not as we think it should be.
Being brought up is being taught not to admit it, because you know very well what's going on. But in order to find out once more as an adult, you have to become again as a child. So what does that involve? It means, ladies and gentlemen, would you please check your ideas and opinions at the door, first of all. All your philosophical and religious views, all your logic, Because I say check it at the door advisedly, because you can pick it up again when you go out if you feel unsafe without it. I'm not trying to argue you out of your opinions and views. I'm merely suggesting that for the sake of an experiment, you temporarily suspend them and view what is as if you didn't even know how to talk.